Good morning. My name is Candace Prince with Green Hope Project. We are very excited to have this presentation today. What we have going on here is with Insights, and this is the Insight Student-Led Environmental Stewardship Initiative. They have a lot of stuff they've been working on, and I'm pretty eager to hear what's going on with this because I think the student component gives me hope for our future, so I'm pretty excited. So thank you for the educators and students here. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Candy, and thank you for your continued support. Green Hope Project is part and a big partner in our SESI initiative. So without the help of the Green Hope Project, we definitely couldn't do what we need to do. So with that said, I'll go ahead and share. So SESI stands for Student-Led Environmental Stewardship Initiative, and this is an EPA-funded program that we at Insight have. I'm Jennifer Ramos-Chavez. I am the Environmental Education Coordinator at Insight Science Center. My background is actually in ecology. Most of my work has been done in landscapes. I've been looking at how climate has changed and how different landscapes are responding to treatment, in particularly areas that have been decimated and changed because of human activities. And with my work, I did a lot of outreach and community research. I'm happy to be doing that here locally, particularly with the youth here in El Paso. Totally different environment, but nevertheless, the same initiative and the same hope that we inspire people to care a little bit more about the environment and have a little bit of behavior change and do something about it. If you're not familiar, has been around for the last little over 40 years. It's a private, non-for-profit organization. We are completely 100% mobile. What that means is we bring our programs and exhibits to the community, in particular through 12 schools. And we focus on outreach, bringing informal STEAM education to all ages of El Paso. And as we are a nonprofit, we are completely funded by grants and generous donations from our public. And again, our mission is to promote STEAM education through exploratory interactive learning experiences. And as I mentioned, SESI EPA funded. We have a grant totaling $100,000, and the mission here is to build a environmentally conscious future on the border region by providing young community members, specifically high school students, with the skills and experiences to promote a new generation of conservational awareness. And what our goals are is obviously one, again, we want to promote environmental stewardship and among these young community members here in El Paso. And to do this, to empower them to develop a fully student-led conservation program that solves an environmental issue or problem that's important to their community. And with this, we on these students building a deeper awareness and knowledge for their environment, hopefully encourage career development in the environmental sciences, and most importantly, promote collaboration within communities on environmental issues and disparities here in the border region. And we strive to do this a few different aspects, and that includes our workshops, that are developed by our amazing partners, which I'll talk about in a bit. Our field trips, each of the two schools have formed an environmental stewardship club, and partnerships and networking with local experts and environmentalists, and of course, the restoration project that I mentioned. And again, we absolutely could not do this without our strategic partners. We have selected these organizations as our sub-grant recipients, all of whom have already been awarded funds to help with the program. We have the Frontera Land Alliance, the El Paso Trans-Pacific Wildland Society, Friends of the Rio Bosque, of course, the Green Hope Project, and Centennial Museum and Trail and Deserts. And then our two schools, of course, are Cathedral High School and Horizon High School. For our sub-grant recipients, each of those organizations, they were awarded 25, but amongst the different organizations, 25% of the total EPA funds was divided up amongst the different 2 schools and 6. I showed only 5, but we also have the Texas Council for I forget the acronym. And each of those institutions were awarded grants. And with this, we intend that partnership is can help increase transparency, public participation, and collaboration amongst formal and informal environmental or educators. And this is super, super important because we all have these different initiatives and each of us doing, different small projects. When we bring those small projects together, they make a much greater impact. And so that's one of our hopes with SESI is that we can bring all these different ideas and groups that are doing super important work together so that we can have a meaningful outcome that inspires young people in El Paso to make a difference. And for students participating in a program like SESI, schools and organizations, is we are allowing students to develop a deeper connection with the school environment. When students are taught environmental science here in El Paso, a lot of times their textbooks don't necessarily touch on local aspects and issues here in the border region. And so with our workshops, we hope to immerse the students into topics and issues that affect them here locally so that they can make that connection, so they can see this is what's going on with our soils or with our mountains or with the pollution that we are exposed to. Here is picturing a polar bear losing its home in the ice caps of the Arctic because they don't see that. It's hard for them to make that connection. So that's one of the goals and one of the important reasons programs like SESI work and are helpful for our students. Also, students are more likely to become environmentally aware in their actions. So if you get them involved and you have them ownership in their actions and the consequences of their behaviors, then they're more likely to change that. And in doing so, they're more likely to inspire their immediate family and friends to also make changes in the way they live. But most importantly, what I think is it inspires young people to take initiative with the issues they see. I think with a lot of the students that we've worked with, whether it's they live next to a factory or they live next to a water treatment plant, for them, that's their normal and they don't know otherwise. And for us to be able to make a connection, help them understand that this is an environmental injustice, and we make the partnerships with our experts and our researchers, and they understand how others are trying to change this, then they see that their normal is not normal for others. And in fact, they can make a change, give them a voice, and be at the table where the important decisions are being made. And so I will share our website with you. And we try to keep this up to date as best we can. And here we just kind of talk about what SESI is, our organizations. We're currently recruiting, as I mentioned, we have the 2 schools that have their environmental stewardship club, but we started a citywide club. And this allows us to have a broader reach with our audience and allows students at other high schools that aren't necessarily SESI affiliated schools to still join and still gain access to the presentations, the workshops, the experts, and most importantly, hands-on stuff that we will intend to start in the fall. So if you know any high school students or family or teachers, we ask that you share this with them so that we can recruit students. Also try to allow the public to follow along in their journey. And so most of these pictures are pre-pandemic when we were still able to have our in-person activities. And so here we just kind of know what we're doing with the students, the different workshops, and how we're inspiring them to start thinking more critical problem solving and perhaps being a change here on the border region. But as we had the pandemic that hit, but nevertheless, that didn't stop us because we figured out ways that we can reach the students, and we have transitioned our entire curriculum to a virtual platform, which has been a blessing in disguise because now it allows us to share it with all environmental educators here in the El Paso region. And I'll share that with you now. Let me come back up here. So, as I mentioned, have had all of these incredible organizations work so incredibly hard on developing workshops and field trips for our students to partake in. And previously, we were able to do these in person. They are virtual, and more people can use them. So that's amazing. And so each of these workshops can be found on our website. And I'll share this one because I had a meeting with the EPA the other day, and this was their favorite one. So let's say you want to talk about environmental justice. So the teacher can just click on it, and we have all the teacher resources at the bottom, but you would share this link with your students. And we could do like an assessment to understand what the students' understanding and needs are beforehand. A little introduction. Each of the workshops are pretty much formatted the same. They might differ, but for this one, they can have an introduction to what is environmental justice, and then there are interviews and a deeper insight on what local citizens are doing to address environmental injustices within their own communities. And again, these are all people from the El Paso region, so it's little neighborhoods that perhaps some of these students might live in. There's also resources for students to understand the issues with fair housing and how certain communities are disproportionately segregated and more vulnerable due to the way legislation and authorities have put them in places that aren't conducive for living. So, it just gives them a deeper understanding and comprehension of those issues. And then each of our groups have put together different methods of assessing and extending what the student learned. For example, the students here would conduct an activity looking at, are working with a mapping tool by the EPA to look at and compare population and demographics and perhaps some environmental hazards that some communities might face versus others. And it kind of starts their wheels turning and understanding how, even though we live in one city, not every part of the city is equitable. And then the students are challenged to think like an activist and come up with solutions for some of the situations, and most of them might be in fact true, but how they can address this and make a difference. And then, as I mentioned, they would retest their knowledge, and then resources available at the bottom. So there are a variety of different workshops that are available. And I also mentioned that there's field trips, and these are pretty interesting as well. So let's say, and we know that this is the case with many of the districts, that funding to actually take your students out and get them exposed to some of the amazing little resources that we have here in El Paso. Well, that's okay, because now you can do it virtually. Our set up pretty similarly to our workshops. Each one would have a pre-quiz and then an introduction to what it is. Most of them have virtual apps to where the students can actually, they can go to the site on their own and they can run the tour, or they can completely use it on their mobile device and follow along. And so, for example, here, each of these pictures and numbers would be a different stop on the virtual tour. And it, literally walks the student on these different aspects. And each of these stops has information and videos explaining concepts at this tour. For example, this one would talk about different Chihuahua disease, restoration efforts at this particular site, specific information about Keystone, etc. So you're still immersing the students in their local environment without them having to take a bus there. It's always better to be in person, but as a contingency, it's nice to have a backup. And each of the field trips always have a student activity for the students to partake in. And we have a post-field trip activity to extend on what they've learned. And then, of course, the post-quiz. And all of this is available free, at no charge, to teachers throughout the region. Of course, if you live in the East Coast, you could use it too, which we would love for you. But of course, making that connection with your students is the most important thing to do. So Again, you can scan this QR code and you will find, it'll take you to our site. And I want to go ahead and let one of our teams share his perspective on his experience with them. So with that said, I'll go ahead and let Mr. Esparza, who is a teacher at Cathedral High School, who's also a club sponsor for their environmental science clubs. Mr. Esparza, if you would like to take it over.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Esparza. I am a science teacher at Cathedral High School, and I became involved with SESI this year, which was about halfway through us being awarded the opportunity to participate in SESI. And I started teaching environmental science this year, and I can tell you that this has really been a program-changing opportunity for us. And so I wanted to hit on several points that, from a teacher's perspective, really shows how beneficial this program can be via curriculum, via student engagement, and all of the things that we try to do as teachers to reach our students and to make them learn and not just memorize things, but actually apply what they learn and you know, use that to, you know, improve our community. So first and foremost, I do teach AP Environmental Science. So the first thing that really should pop into our heads as teachers is, how does this prepare our students for the AP exam? And I can tell you that all of the lessons and workshops that have been produced by our partners have applications to AP test prep. Each activity that the students do has some sort of has a relationship to the criteria that the AP test wants, the College Board wants you to go over with your AP coursework. So, for example, the Chihuahuan Desert Food Web is, you know, covered towards the early part of the year, and food webs are definitely something that's asked on the AP exam. Even to something that they want you to cover a little bit more later in the year, like environmental justice. There's direct application of the material that SESI puts on for the students, direct application to preparing them for the AP test. My students took the AP test last Friday, and the feedback has been good. They feel like they did really well, and they feel like they were well prepared. The workshops themselves have saved me hours of prep time because the research of finding engaging material has already been done by our field professionals and our partners. So if instead of spending hours scrounging through the internet trying to find a good you know, satellite imagery or remote imagery of water levels, you know, the workshops have already done that. You know, they have already done a lot of the heavy lifting. So when you do put on a workshop, it usually takes about 2 to 3 days to get through them. It saves just hours of prep time, and it's done by people who are, to be honest, more qualified than me. They're experts in their field in coming up and researching this material to present to the students. Right off the bat, it's been very, very helpful for my classroom. The students' engagement has been phenomenal, even in a virtual setting. So I know our partners have done such an amazing job putting these engaging and thought-provoking activities together. And you know, each time a workshop was released to us, you know, we all looked forward to doing it because it's all high yield. The students are they're actively doing these activities. They're participating in the activities in the workshop, and then the amount that they've learned is tangible because of the pre and post quizzes that they do. It really shows how much they've learned. You know, we're always trying to, as teachers, look for ways to engage students. And that was even more difficult in a virtual setting where, you know, you're not with the students, you know, doing a lab. You can't really do that as much. The workshops and things like that have really allowed for more student engagement in a way that would have been difficult by myself. So I was very, very appreciative of the student engagement aspect of the workshops. Relevancy. So we all know as teachers that we need to make our material relevant for the students to want to learn our material, to want to learn, to want to be engaged and actively participate. And there's no better program that bridges the things that you would learn into the classroom with real world applications. A lot of this is because it is focused on local issues, and it does a better job of creating relevancy than any textbook or thing that you would find on the internet could do. You know, a student can go outside and see our mountains, they can see our plants, they can, you know, watch our birds and whatnot, and or see these, they're exposed to these companies that do this environmental work. And on the opposite end, they see the pollution, the negative impacts that, you know, members of our community, you know, sometimes do. And so a lot of the things that you would find on the internet they're kind of, they're national problems, or, you know, they talk about other things, but the relevancy is extremely important for student engagement and for the material to stick with the students, which segues into student ownership. So the creation and focus on local topics and issues promotes student ownership of learning, again, in a way that no national internet or textbook resource can compete with. So students own their learning. They're more engaged. And it inspires them more to pursue careers in the field. And I've seen that with my students as well. Lastly, one of the goals of the program is to help us educators establish relationships with these local experts and our partners. And, you know, those relationships are really important, even beyond SESI, as we, you know, constantly learn to improve our curriculum, tweak things. We've had several partners visit our classrooms and help us put the workshops on. They provide expertise that is extremely valuable, and that's something that we continue to foster. And it's a resource that can be utilized as the years go on, as you continue to improve and get more students into the classroom and out into the field of working with different organizations and making that impact that we always dream that we want our classrooms to make. And lastly, there's this tangible results that you know, teachers are always looking for. I teach many science classes. I teach physics classes. I teach anatomy and physiology. So I have a really broad spectrum in the amount of courses that I teach. And no matter what course you teach, you always want to have some kind of tangible impact. We're always looking for that as teachers. So did what I teach my students help them? Did it help my community? Did it inspire them? And this program absolutely helps us do that. With our project that we're doing at Keystone, we're able to actually see the fruits of our labor, and it's just something that we've been extremely blessed to be a part of. And I really encourage anyone who teaches environmental science or biology or earth space science to really take a hard look at this program and see the amazing benefits that come with the workshops and the things that have been put together to improve your classrooms. That's if any teacher needs to contact me, ask questions about it, I'm always available to promote the SESI program and encourage you to utilize this amazing resource.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Esparza. So as I mentioned, we have we work with currently, each of which have developed their environmental stewardship club. Again, High School and Horizon High School. And both of them have, despite the pandemic, have tried in, making progress in our SESI program. But obviously the needs and the composition at each of these schools is a little bit different. Today we are going to have one of our students and one of our student leaders, I must say, talk about projects. And so now I would like to turn it over to Pedro Ochoa. He is a student rep from Cathedral High School, and he'll be sharing all the good stuff about the project there at Cathedral. So I'll let Pedro share his screen.
So hi everybody, my name is Pedro Ochoa. Like Dr. Chavez mentioned, I'm a student at Cathedral, which is one of the schools that are partnered with SESI. And I'm kind of just here to give my student perspective on what SESI is and what it has done. So what does SESI mean to students like me? Well, SESI gives students an opportunity, like Mr. Esparza mentioned, to make tangible changes in their community. Environmental science classes tend to be very conceptual, right? But SESI focuses on a lot of local issues and problems. Like we've covered issues of environmental injustice locally and like oil plants locally in the area, right? So SESI allows students to make tangible changes, like within their community, things that you can actually see, right? Like Mr. Esparza mentioned the same thing, but it allows students to do things within the community that have actual real results and are not conceptual. So that's actually like a very cool thing to be able to put in the work and see what comes out of it. And apart from offering that opportunity, it also gives students the tools needed to make those changes, like access to a lot of professionals in the field of environmental science. A couple examples, we once had a meeting with a man named Mike Gaglio, who taught us about like water drainage collection and how he makes holes in streets to collect water runoff. And that was actually like a really core idea that we implemented into one of our projects later. And even if, in a more broader stance, we once had a meeting where they taught us how to make budgets with Excel, right? So the skills that they teach is has a very wide range. So the Cathedral SESI Club, that's I'm a member in that Cathedral SESI Club. And the Cathedral SESI Club was created with the purpose of promoting environmental awareness and stewardship kind of within our own community and within Cathedral, like our school. So we're basically kind of like the school's green club. We encourage participation in environmental activities like going on field trips, going on hikes, going shopping at local food markets and things like that. And we also encourage our students to be knowledgeable in current environmental issues, such as global warming and things like that. So some of our major ongoing, we were just created this year, right? So we have a lot of things planned for the future. But some of our major ongoing and future projects include the restoration of Keystone Heritage Park, which I'm going to get into a little bit later, and kind of a proper recycling system at our school is another big project that we really want to do. So like I just mentioned, the Keystone Heritage Park restoration project was a big project that we're involved in as Cathedral. So while we were looking for restoration projects, we found Keystone Heritage Park, which is a local park, and we found that it had a very severe water issue. So Keystone Heritage Park has a very big water issue that in certain areas of the park, they're very, very dry, right? So as you can see by the pictures, to the right, it's us and a huge lake that's filled with water, right? But to the left is a drier area of Keystone that's caused by drought and other factors. Right, so this is our major restoration project. This is what we want to get involved in. So the first step we're gonna have to do in this project is we'll provide actual water to the park. And how we plan on doing that is we want to restore water by pumping stormwater from the adjacent street, Donovan. So we want to install a pump that pumps stormwater from the street right next to Keystone. And that's kind of the basis for a restoration project, right? As we can't do anything else if we don't supply the water first. But the project doesn't end there. The second step is earthworks, right? We want to build a strip of land from dirt and plants to help the land better retain the water that we actually provide. That's the second step. I don't know if you see this area here, but this is where we want to build the strip of land. And of course, this will further help ensure the park has water and actually retains that water. And the third and final step of our restoration project is we want to transplant and plant new vegetation at the park while ensuring the survival of the vegetation, of course. Here's where we will actually reap the benefits from the water that we provided, and we can actually start planting trees that benefit the local wildlife. So what are the benefits of the Keystone Restoration Project? Well, since El Paso is a very dry city, it has very few green spaces. So Keystone will be a great destination for families to go and visit. It has a lot of activities available. A popular activity at Keystone is bird watching. A lot of people love to go bird watching at Keystone. You see this picture on the right, you see the huge amount of birds that Keystone has, so that's great. Keystone is also an archaeological site, so that's also a really good destination for families to go and visit and learn about local wildlife and vegetation. So another possible result from our project is kind of a sense of heightened awareness for the environment. Like Dr. Chavez mentioned, it's a lot easier for students to actually learn about these concepts if the concepts that you teach them are local ideas. So when families come and visit here, they might actually get a sense of like why it's important that they need to have sustainable practices and be aware of their environment. And obviously, apart from the obvious physical benefits to the local wildlife and vegetation through water, Keystone is actually a really good educational source as well. So we want to offer educational tours where students can physically come and visit the park, right? And they can learn about local wildlife and vegetation and about environmental concepts through Keystone, right? It's a lot easier to learn something if you see it right in front of you, and we hope to provide that opportunity. We also hope to provide a kind of a digital species identification with QR codes where students can go and kind of scan a QR code and learn about a local plant or bird or species. So why is it important for young people to get involved in environmental science? Right. I know we probably have some students on the call and some students who are going to watch it later. So why is it important for us to get involved in environmental science? So young people are the future stewards and caretakers of the earth, right? We're the next generation in sustainable practices, and our actions are going to be the ones that determine the state of our planet for the rest of existence, right? Even though we didn't directly ask for it, we're going to inherit Earth, and it is our responsibility. We're going to inherit Earth and all the consequences of our actions, right? So it is our responsibility to help alleviate these environmental issues, starting at a young age, like us, of course. And a big part of environmental science is education. So it's vital that students begin to develop an interest in environmental issues early on, in high school and maybe even middle school, right? So they're more educated and interested for these problems in the future. It's important that we create a sense of urgency within youth, so they are more able to deal with these problems later on in their life when they can actually deal with them, right? It's important that we provide the necessary information for students now, so in the future, they're actually able to deal with these issues and educate others on these issues. And like we said, educating students doesn't just stop at the students, right? Educated students help educate their peers and their families, which creates kind of a big circle, a big virtue of education, which is really, really important. So contact and sign up. If you're interested in joining, please, I listed Mr. Esparza's email right here. You can email him, and also Dr. Chavez. Here's her email too. Our club Instagram. So if you would like to follow us on Instagram so you can receive updates about Keystone and other projects, you can go ahead. Here's our name. And here's a QR code if you missed it from Dr. Chavez's presentation to the SESI website where you can go. And I really recommend you sign up if you're a student. It's really fun. It's a really fun project that allows you to actually make a change, a tangible change within your community and help people and plants while kind of enjoying nature. And I really do recommend it as a student from SESI. It's been a really good experience. And yeah, that was my presentation. That was my insight as a student in a SESI program.
Awesome. And yes, and with that said, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. And if you have any questions, we would be glad to take those. If you know of users who could use our resources, we ask that you please share. And especially if you have any students or friends or any young El Pasoan in grades 9 through 12, we are more than willing to take their volunteer time to come and work with us and learn more about our local environment. And so thank you, Candy, for allowing us this platform to share SESI.
Thank you guys. This is amazing. And I love that you have the organization who's running it, a perspective from a teacher and a perspective from a student. So that's really informative. And so I had a couple questions, Pedro, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was just going to ask you, I know it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of stuff that were inspired by Mike that came and talked to you guys, and you got some projects underway. Do you have a timeline for that stuff or?
We do. Let me see if I can actually share my screen. I'm pretty sure we plan on beginning in the summer on the Keystone.
Yeah.
And, it's a really long-term project, right? So we don't want to just, it's not going to be just my generation who's working on this project.
Yes.
We hope to kind of lead it on for at least a couple of years. So we want to begin this. Well, obviously we're going to have to lay the groundwork, but then we're going to pass it off to the next set of cathedral students, and they're going to continue it. So let me see, Mr. Esparza, could you share your screen with the document proposal, the timeline?
Yeah, I can just pull it up. And while I do that as well, keep in mind that as far as our project goes, you do not need to be a cathedral student to help us complete that project. As far as that project is concerned, we absolutely will take any student who's willing to put in the good work to help us do that restoration, because it does take a lot of work. Yeah. And it is something that anyone can be involved in, and if you're a student applying to a college, something that'll look very good on your applications and your resumes. So this is our current timeline. This is kind of subject to change. We're looking to complete our project proposal this month, and it's basically done. We just kind of have to proofread it. Takes a little bit of time to get that project approved, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we can start breaking ground in July or August. But as you can see, this definitely runs through the entire year and beyond. So we'll always be looking for help and new students to come and help us and give tours and maintain the project and whatnot. So this is our current timeline, of course, very much subject to change, but we want to at least start breaking ground towards the latter part of the summer before it gets cold, because that's the best time to plant and replant new vegetation.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, how can we help? As you know, there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this recording later on YouTube, and I'm sure it'll be within the time frame that, they can still maybe jump in and help. And I know you had a screen with contact information. Is that the best way to reach out to get a hold of you guys, through the email?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the best way to contact us. My email's on my phone, so I'm constantly getting updates. Both myself and Dr. Chavez can direct you as far as joining up on the group, any waivers that you might have to sign, and getting you involved. So really easy to sign up. It'll just take just some contact information. Let us know who you are, and we'll direct you accordingly.
Perfect. And I think Pedro just put the contact in the chat. Perfect.
If I could just add to that also, we didn't have a representative from Horizon High School, but what makes it unique is we have schools on total opposite ends of El Paso, and Cathedral will be working out of Stone. And Horizon, we have it narrowed down, but they may be in Horizon City or Rio Bosque. So either way, they'll be on the east side of town. So if there's students or individuals who are on the east side and Keystone's too far for them, then they can also work on the other project as well.
That would be amazing. No, I'm already thinking of some individuals that might want to help you guys out. So that's helpful. I also wanted to ask, are you guys in need of any additional financial support? Like if there's a company that sees this and they want to help, are you guys good, or always open to free money?
So our definitely. So the funding for SESI runs out May of 2022. Mm-hmm. And like Pedro had mentioned, the idea of the project is to be sustainable, to be long-term. And he also mentioned that they want to provide opportunities for schools and for children, particularly underrepresented areas, to come and visit the park and to gain that experience. Yes. And often the issue is funding, money, right? A lot of times schools can't afford field trips. And so a part of their initiative, we want to offer that for schools, and that may or may not be part of SESI fund. In the long term, they will need additional funding. So yes, if there are organizations or individuals who want to contribute to the long-term sustainability of this project, they are completely open. Absolutely.
Awesome. That was really cool, Pedro. You were talking about doing some online apps and stuff, right?
Yes, ma'am. So hopefully we want to get I think there's already a virtual tour for Keystone. So you can go into the SESI website and actually take a tour. We want to offer that physically, but we want to develop a sense of QR codes where you would go to the park, you have your phone, right? You scan a QR code and it gives you information about a plant or animal that's actually at Keystone. So it's a lot easier to learn about local wildlife and plants like that.
That is so cool. I love that. And so that I'm not taking over the whole question thing, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to ask any questions or even provide any comments? We can open that up right now.
Right. And I'm also like to add that at Insights, we are continuously looking for funding and for partners. And so though this grant does eventually run out, we'll be looking on the next grant to write out. So in the future, if there are institutions and schools that are watching this and they say, oh, I want to do that at my school, we are trying to see what can renew and or look for another opportunity. The EPA tries to share the love, and so we'll be guaranteed to get this particular grant again, but there's tons of grants that are always coming through the EPA. But if we do really well with this project, who knows, they might be inspired to give us more money. And at that point, again, if any of the schools or teachers who watch this later after the fact and you're interested in doing something like this at school, we could absolutely partner. Or even if we don't have the funding and you with other partners to do that, but you need the guidance and you need the help and you need the training, that's something that we can absolutely help with as well.
No, I think this is amazing. Pedro, as a student, have you seen any of your classmates or even you that have, considered has this changed you? I know you kind of mentioned it. I mean, do you think some people might change their career paths as well, or at least their habits?
I think, well, I'm not sure about the career path, right? Because I haven't discussed this with anyone, but it definitely does make an impact on you. Obviously, like when you take like an environmental science class, you're going to learn about environmental science, right? But I feel like it has definitely made me more like aware and conscious of like environmental problems and like what I can personally do to help. So I think it definitely has made an impact.
Well, you had a great presentation. You're very articulate. You're very smart, and I'm so glad that your school is uniting with the club, and you're going to do this stuff. So I'm looking forward to coming and checking it out now. I've never been, so thank you. You've inspired me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to Mr. Esparza for being such a great teacher and passing this on, because it's got to start somewhere. And Dr. Chavez as well. Thank you for. I mean, it starts at the top and trickles down, and then that's how we can make change, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, keep going.
Yes. And Candy, we want to see you out there with a shovel in the fall, helping us dig some trees.
I am on it. You send me
dig some holes.
Yeah, send me the email. Green Hope Project will be there to represent for sure. And I'm actually in Socorro ISD, so if you let me know stuff, I can reach out to that district and see how we can help as well and kind of unify in those efforts. Okay, so if you have any more questions or comments, you guys were very thorough. They have your contact information, but again, check out Insights and the SESI grant, and we've got Cathedral and Horizon working on these projects. So thank you so much, guys, for representing. You're amazing. Thank you. You give me hope.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And the recording will be made available later, and I'll send you guys an email. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Awesome job, Pedro.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.